Chris Hood. Welcome to the More Than Rich podcast. I am Joe Cat. From my understanding, this is a very enticing podcast. Let me tell you why. Your experience is super aligned with the way I think. I think you're like, I don't want to say like a visionary, but you have a lot of foresight into trends and predicting things that are going to happen. And I can kind of relate to that.
Yeah, well, great to be here, and thank you for the kind words. That is definitely a challenging skill, and it comes from a lot of years of experience, and definitely staying in touch and in tune with what is going on in various spaces. So I wake up every day and read the news and read crazy articles and read what's on the menu at Taco Bell and read just random stuff, because you never know how that random stuff is going to help you see, like you said, potentially see into the future. But yeah, my career started at a movie theater. I worked there as one of my first jobs and sold popcorn and cleaned up theaters after people left. Took tickets at the door, and I really enjoyed the process of just concessions and ticket taking and sales. And of course, I loved movies. So I got to sit down and watch all of my favorite movies. Some of my best experiences was being in a big giant theater, watching Jurassic Park by myself and hearing, dinosaurs behind me, like getting freaked out. But I loved it. And yeah, I think throughout my entire career, it was all about understanding how technology can help people and how people want to leverage technology. And the foresight really comes from the recognition that we as consumers ourselves, how we want to engage with technology is evolving. And every day we wake up and we have a certain need or a certain desire. And those needs and desires and expectations and even aspirations are what fuel our decisions. And if you can tap into that, if you can unlock that, if you can recognize what we all want as consumers, then you can start to solve problems and build products around those solutions. And what's really interesting, I think, is as we go about our daily lives and we go into businesses and we say go to grocery stores and shop, I'm sure we've all encountered experience that we've said, well, that doesn't make sense. Or I wish I could do it this way. Or, why am I still going about it this old way? Like
Even
that
just
seems so
annoyance,
outdated.
right? Just being annoyed by something.
Yeah, being annoyed by something. Like those are your indicators into how to solve problems. Because if you're annoyed by something, odds are somebody else is annoyed by something, which then gives you insight to a potential product or solution to solve something. Now, there's a couple of different areas in there. You've got the business, right? The business may not want to change it, or somebody else is already doing this solution that solves your annoyance, but it's not on a larger scale. So that's what you have to constantly be on the lookout for is what are these little things that we struggle with on our own daily basis, and then start to figure out how you can build that as a product to help others.
I'm curious. Well, there's a lot to unpack there because you made me think. First of all, you were just a consumer. You were just watching movies. You weren't, going to school for this at the beginning. You didn't have an interest in it from the beginning. So I kind of want you to talk about how the shift of being a consumer and then being like, maybe I kind of want to pursue this or change something about this, because there's definitely a shift. And then maybe you can talk about maybe how you foresee what you've already done, because I know you think maybe it's getting to another redundant point where it's like a full 360 circle where now we got to invent something else to entertain people in the movie theaters, right? So where do you see that kind of going?
Yeah, well, I think what you're asking is interesting because we talk about I'm a consumer and then a shift to being in the business on the business side of it. But really, we never stop being consumers. We might shift our focus, but you're still always going to be a consumer. And hopefully you're consuming your own products, especially if you're in business. But that's the problem that I think a lot of times people are faced with is they remove themselves from that consumption, from being a customer. And in order to continuously keep attuned with what is going on, you have to stay in that consumer position. Even if you're on the other side, even if you're an executive, all of the problems, most of the problems, most majority, all of the problems that we see with businesses today is because an executive has made a decision without listening to their consumers.
To prioritize profit and money over the ideas, what initially made you successful, your love and passion.
Exactly. Exactly it. And when you lose sight of that customer, if you no longer want to put yourself, just because you're the CEO, you still have to be the customer. When you start to lose sight of that, you start to have problems. So maintaining that perspective is valuable for everyone, no matter what you do. And then as we start to look forward, that's how we look forward, is because we might go to the movies. I've been going to the movie theaters for 50 years, 40 plus years. And every time I go to the movies, I sit there, I look at the screen, I see something, maybe there's a little bit of entertainment. I look like the number of people that are at the movies is going down. And I'm thinking myself, like, how could I make this experience more interesting? How could I make this experience better? Oh, I wish I had, fill in the blank. And that leads you through the path of, well, how do you innovate on that? How do you create new ideas? How do you build what's next? What do we see is going to be the future? I have some ideas about what the future of movie going might be. We're obviously seeing a decline in theaters themselves. We are seeing the entertainment and streaming services increase. But even there, we see there's definitely frustration that consumers are having with the number of different streaming services. All you have to do is talk to your friends. Like, you have Netflix. Yeah, but there's nothing good on Netflix. Or, oh, I watched this one thing, but I really wish I had this service. Like, as you're having that conversation, you're realizing what people are thinking and feeling about streaming services. So you start to look forward. Well, what if we could solve that? How could we solve that? Once again, I'm not the owner of a business in that scenario. I'm a consumer that's trying to solve my own problems that I know my friends have. And if you continue in that thought process, you usually can come up with some great ideas.
It's interesting. You made me think that we're going like full circle back to cycle with your cable packages where you're picking your channels again. It's like, geez, you can't escape that. No matter how efficient it becomes, you're still going back to some weird process that we all seem to agree is a better way to do things? Question mark.
Yeah, but the reality is that we don't want to pick our packages, right? We don't want to pick like, oh, Netflix and Disney Channel, whatever,
Yeah,
right? What we want to do is we want to pick the brands that we are aligned to. So if I think about Disney as an example, the only thing that I probably would really watch on Disney right now is maybe Star Wars and maybe Marvel. Okay. So those are the brands, the IPs that I want to watch. And then if I look at Netflix, One Hat recently came out that was pretty darn good. There's a couple of shows like The Witcher on Netflix that I like. Like, I would rather go and get, an all you can eat type of buffet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want a little side of Star Wars with some Witcher and then maybe a sports package, right? Like, I don't, and I not even a sports package. I only want to watch whatever the Cincinnati Reds for baseball season. I don't need everything else. I don't want to watch everything else. I'm never going to watch everything else. It's all going to sit there. The problem is that the industry prevents that type of service from being created. But if you could create that service where I could just pick the shows that I want to watch, now it's convenient for me. It's more cost effective. It's beneficial. And potentially the studios are going to make more money in the long run.
I agree.
But we are back at that 360 cable version, pick and check, the streaming service you want. And you end up with 5 or 6 different streaming services that you're paying for, and most of the content you'll never get to.
I would argue, though, that the channel now is the brand themselves. So that empowers creators even more so to, like, you can really be your own movie. You can be whatever you want to be, really. It wasn't like that when cable was around. But shifting the conversation a little bit, this one's a mixed question. Experience at Google and future of AI. I just want to kind of touch on maybe the misconceptions that people might have of why you're working there. Because I know people are probably like, can you get me in? Which is not a thing. I'm sure that's not a thing. So what are misconceptions about working at Google, and then the future of AI, how you see it just affecting industries you're in specifically?
Yeah, so Google, like you said, there's a very strict process for getting people to work at Google. You've got to go through the interview process like everybody else. And in fact, they've even removed some of the practice of just bringing in the people right? So, like as a hiring manager, I can't just go and hire you and say, "Hey, come on, I'll get you a job and you can work for me." All of that's removed. You've got to go through the process. There's a very strict process. There's multiple interviews. You've got to be the right fit. You've got to have the right mindset. There's a lot of checks and balances along the way, which makes Google one of the great places to work for, because if you get hired and you get in there, then you're part of, sort of that elite few. And it also means that you're going to be aligned with a lot of other people who have basically a similar mindset, a similar work ethic, a similar, way of doing business. And that's the purpose, is to build a culture that resonates with the culture they want to build, right? As far as artificial intelligence is concerned, there's a wide range of places AI could materialize. I think what's interesting, if we look at AI today, is that the access to AI has shifted. AI, again, has been around for 40 plus years. AI is not new. AI has been in products that you have used for a long time and you probably didn't even realize it. Anytime that you've written a paper inside of, say, Microsoft Word, and you went to do a grammar check and a spell check, you've used a version of AI to perform that grammar check. Um, Inside of Gmail, if you have Gmail, they've now introduced kind of complete my sentences, right? So it comes up with recommendations as to how you might want to complete this sentence. That's all AI driven, right? If you've ever used Starbucks and you've placed an order in the Starbucks app and gone and pick it up, you've used AI. So AI is not new. It's not really actually even interesting. What has changed is the way that you can access AI. So what ChatGPT, as an example, has done is it's made AI accessible to the average person, to you and to me and to anybody else. And you can log into a website and you can ask it a question and you can ask it to do something, and it does it. Same thing with, say, like Midjourney or some of the art programs. It's because it's become accessible and you can have it in the palm of your hands and use it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's doing anything revolutionary. In fact, it's not doing anything revolutionary. But because you are seeing it for the first time, or it's in your hand and you're able to play with it, that feels revolutionary. Where it's going in the future is it's just going to continue to do more of the same. It's going to automate practices. It's going to make things more streamlined. It's going to provide more information. It's going to give you access to more information than you have currently today. And so I think you're going to continue to see AI evolve, and it's going to continue to be used in very unique ways. The real question is how are consumers going to use it? Back to how we started the conversation. And if you can answer that question, then that's where AI is going to become more powerful.
That's actually where my concern kind of lies, because my fear is people are passively accepting it and then they kind of are disinterested, because then it allows the companies to just kind of operate with autonomy, like, well, nobody sees it, nobody cares, nobody's really engaging. So I'm kind of curious if you think this is really like the doomsday scenario of a war, like to the top, whoever's going to be first, or is it more of is it just a race for data? Are we just trying to gather as much as we can? Like, what do you think their end goal really is, especially in terms of an American company, right? Because we kind of are controlling the narrative right now.
Yeah. The end game is money. That's really all it is. It's, can I get a product out there fast enough for people to use so that I can generate money? I mean, that's what every single company who is on the AI bandwagon, it's all about how can I benefit financially by implementing this, right? There's really no doomsday scenario unless we let AI go rogue. It's not like going to be Terminator or anything like that. It's going to continue to automate and improve processes. There's a continual growth of data that is available, which is also why AI is becoming more accessible. So as data continues to evolve and more data is out there, continues to evolve, then great. I think AI is going to become more personalized. We're looking at, say, personalized assistants. So if you think about your Alexa device or your Google Home device that is in your house and you say, okay, Google, tell me the weather. We have our phones, right? And even our phones have like, Google and Alexa on them. So we can talk to our phone and say, make dinner reservations at McDonald's for me tonight. And it's going to, be able to do that and put it on your calendar and all those things. The application of a personalized assistant, an AI assistant, is probably either going to get more advanced on your mobile devices or become personalized. We've already started to see like things you could wear that have AI assistants in it. And those are going to be a little bit more complex, and we potentially might decentralize data. So instead of sharing that data with companies who are going to produce algorithms and content back to us, we're going to own our own data, and it's going to be data that's going to live on our own devices that are powered by AI assistants that are going to be able to engage with other AI assistants. So
I
I'll
mean,
put this in a context of like dating, online dating. Imagine if you had an AI assistant that was your wingman, really. And your AI assistant, you walked into a bar, and as you got into the bar, it looked for other AI assistants from other people who are in the bar. And those AI assistants, like through Bluetooth, basically communicate with each other and say, hey, would you like to meet this person? Here's your profile. You've already got regulations as to who you would like to,
that's
match.
pretty good.
And then those AIs basically say, okay, meet in the corner in 5 minutes.
My
And you go and you
God.
meet and you say, hey, look, I've just matched. And it's because our AIs did the matchmaking for us in real time while we were standing in the bar.
This
Like that
podcast
type of
is your
advanced
IP.
analysis is what we're looking for.
That is great. I'm so impressed by that one. And that was just like the most basic example. Wow. My mind is blown right now. Um,
Now,
uh,
as far as I know, no one is building that right now. So
that's what
there's a
I'm
free one.
saying. That's what I'm
You
saying. I'm
go and
like,
build it.
I was like, do you want me to pull this and save it for you? But,
Yeah.
and I'm kidding, but have you heard of
no, somebody can go and definitely build that because that's the power of personalized data and a personalized AI experience, right? You don't need to then go and log into, say, a dating platform like like
but
Tinder as an
the fact that I
example.
would use it though, like I'm hearing you and I'm like, that's good. Yes, I would do that. And then you're realizing it's possible. And it's like, oh wow, the phones
Right.
could just talk to each other. But have you heard of HeyGen, where it's a company that basically you have digitized avatars. So now you can just kind of be everywhere at once. I'm just kind of curious your perspective on how that can be utilized and implications.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are exploring that area. It's really no different than if we think about what the metaverse is intended to be.
Mm.
But the reality is the metaverse is never going to work. The current version of what we think the metaverse is going to be is not going to work. This is also why, companies like Facebook are starting to back out of that metaverse concept, because it goes back to this principle of how can the average person use it? And until you have the capabilities of the average person, then it's not adoptable. Apple came out with their eyeglass thing, and a bunch of people bought it, but They're already returning it. There's not a lot of use. There's not a lot of adoption. Why? Because the average person is not going to put on a headset and do it. What ChatGPT did with AI is it made it so that the average person could log in and interact with AI, right? So the dating example I gave you is because the average person would be able to just connect with their phone or some sort of personal device to simplify the dating process, right? It's about the masses. It's about providing technology in a way that the average person can easily use it. If you can't get there, then it's not going to be used. And so things like avatars and systems that allow you to create and be virtualized and all that kind of stuff, in theory, they're the right thing. We're moving that area, but we're not going to be able to do it until, say, your mom, once your mother and your father do it, then we know we've reached a point where the average person can adopt it.
And I know this isn't really maybe your specialty, but do you anticipate maybe blockchain companies having to rethink entirely now that they have AI, like just redoing everything from the ground? Like, what's going to happen to all those coins if we assume Metaverse is going to just kind of dwindle away?
Yeah. So my feeling on blockchain is pretty blunt. It's that it's at the very infinite stages of what it will become. The format of blockchain today is not what's going to be successful. Just like AI has been around for 50 plus years, it will probably take blockchain 30 plus years before it can become a format that is accessible by the average person, that makes sense, and that it can actually be revolutionary for what it could potentially do. What that version is, I don't know. But the format that it is in today is not what's going to be successful in the long run. It's no different than like 3D. If we think about going back to the movie theaters, 3D has been around actually since the late 1890s. So over 120 years before we converted 3Ds into like virtual reality. But even virtual reality has been around for 50 plus years as well. And then that has translated into what we now have on our heads, right? So if you watch that progress, it took 100 years before we had something that we could wear on our heads to explore virtual worlds. AI is the same. The web has been the same. The internet was introduced in the mid 80s or early 80s, 70s, late 70s into the 90s. Then we got into the dot coms, another 60 years of evolution before the internet became what we know it to be today. Blockchain is just starting. It has a long, 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 long way to go.
One of the things that I say a lot of times when it comes to ChatGPT is that the future is going to be all about the people who come up with the ideas. I believe that it'll empower creatives if they put their mind to using the technology, because then they can really harness their ideas, like conceptually, tangibly bring them to life. And it could even maybe give you routes that you didn't foresee before. And this is like invaluable just because creatives don't think like this. So I'm really curious your perspective on how this can help people who maybe aren't technologically literate, who like they don't realize this might be the one thing that they are missing that could help them get ahead. So like advice or reasoning to adopt GPT, and then maybe any unorthodox ways that you've used it or have found use in it.
Yeah, I mean, ChatGPT does kind of roughly what you would envision a future robot to be, right? Like if we got to that Terminator stage, but they didn't want to take over the world,
That's a good way to put it.
and whatever. But another good movie is, if you've ever seen it, is with Robin Williams called Bicentennial Man. And
Hmm.
it's about the evolution of a robot. So if you haven't seen that, I would highly recommend it. It's a great movie. But if you could imagine a future where you actually had a robot and you would actually talk to the robot and you would ask the robot questions and the robot would actually respond to you with questions, it's basically a partner. It's a co-founder. It's an entity that's going to help you brainstorm and vet ideas. So really, if you think about it, that from your question, the creative process, it would be one thing if you and I were sitting, at dinner at a bar and spitballing ideas back and forth and saying, I've got this crazy idea for a dating app. And you're like, oh my gosh, that'd be great. And we're going back and forth. But you can have that same conversation, with ChatGPT. You can have that conversation with an AI. And you can say, look, I'm really thinking about some type of application that does this. What do you think? And ChatGPT is going to respond with a whole bunch of ideas. And then you could ask another question back. In your response, you had this. I really like this idea. What if we took that idea and we expanded upon it? And that conversation, I mean, that's really what this is. It's a conversation with artificial intelligence to kind of generate ideas and and solve problems. If you take that kind of approach with it, then absolutely, it prevents a lot of opportunities to start thinking differently or start to explore new concepts, ideas, to be creative. And that can be applied across all levels of your business. So if you're thinking about marketing, it could be, don't just write me a blog that I could then post on my website. Let's actually explore marketing problems. Like, for example, I have customers who really want to engage with me on this specific channel, but I'm not active on that channel. How should I go about introducing this new channel into my marketing campaign? And what would the budget be for that? And what would be a calendar of events that I might be able to explore? Now you're getting really detailed information to help you drive that transition into this new marketing channel, right? So you can use it to generate content, but you can also use it to solve these problems or have these conversations or vet new ideas or even generate new ideas.
In terms of all of your like past experience, jobs you've ever worked, would you say that maybe there's one or two that you've learned the most from, and what specifically? Like, it doesn't have to be life lessons or anything technological, just in general.
All of them. If you're not learning something from every job you have, then, there's probably a problem. And I would argue that even if you have a job and you absolutely hate your manager, and the manager is just an awful manager, and you just want to get out of that job as soon as possible, and you were only there for a couple of weeks, you've probably learned something during that experience. You've learned, well, those are managers that I don't like. Let's go find, a manager that's not like that.
Hmm.
That's something I don't like to do. Whatever it is, that's a learning experience. So you've got to really think about learning experiences on a daily basis for no matter what the job is and no matter what the experience was, whether it was good or bad.
Would you argue that your jobs helped you find like meaning, purpose, even the ones when you maybe weren't so happy or didn't like the job so much? Because I'm trying to think of, you know, the main issue right now with AI that we hear a lot is the meaningless crisis, people not knowing what they want to do with their lives. And I'm trying to understand how you found your purpose and how you would advise others to like seek that.
Yeah, finding your purpose is a lot of soul searching and a lot of internal retrospective and and questions. Heck, you could ask AI, what is my life's purpose? And it's going to provide you with a bunch of questions
Yeah.
and you can answer those questions and maybe that will help you. But this is an ongoing process. I've seen a lot of people recently because of layoffs in various industries say, "Oh, it was my dream job. I lost my dream job. I got laid off from my dream job. And what do I do now? What do I do next? I don't know what to do." And my response is usually go find a new dream. Like,
Hmm.
sometimes it's that simple that you have to continuously evolve. You have to continuously look at what's in front of you and what the opportunity is and what's next. Be passionate about what you're doing. I think there's a lot of people out there who I need a job, so I'm just working. I hate my job, but I need the money. I've got to work. I've got to have the benefits. I've got to have whatever it is. Okay, then find something else that you can do when you're not working that is going to motivate you, that is going to empower you, that is going to be interesting. And then at some point in time, leave the job and go somewhere else. Like when you have that opportunity, when you have that chance, don't stay at a job that you don't like. It's going to eat away at you. I mean, I've done it before. I've had lots of jobs where I just despised going into work every day, but I did it because I needed the paycheck. And then you realize afterwards, like, okay, I'm never going to do that again. Right. So make those decisions and explore the opportunities, but definitely find ways that you can counterbalance it with things that you want to do. And as long as you follow your individual dreams, and if those dreams get realized or if those dreams go away, then find new dreams and continue the process.
One of the main aspects of the nonprofit, obviously from the name, is dreams over dollars, right? So I think a lot of people are often stunted just from the idea of not having something. And that took a lot for me to get over. I'm not going to say that that's just something people can just remove from your mind. You have any boundaries and you have all the resources, right? How do I tell people, how would you word this? That it's really about coming up with the ideas first, and then, finding help, resources, all that other stuff can fall into place later. Like the whole world really does operate on, well, what do you have to offer, as opposed to what can you do for yourself? Because there's a lot of collaboration that'll come from just coming up with the idea first, as opposed to just, I need the money, I need the money.
Yeah. Well, I think too often, and you kind of touched on it, is we focus too much of what people think about us, and our identity becomes what do we do and what do we accomplish. So, you know, at Google, you get a lot of people saying, "Oh, you work for Google." Well, Google is not my identity, right? I'm Chris Hood, who worked at Google. You can't let the role or the job or what you do become your identity. You are your identity. You are your brand. And so if you had nothing, you still are yourself. You still are you, and you can accomplish a lot of things. And I do think that a lot of people focus heavily on, well, I need to create something big. That's society. That's people and their expectations. Like, I would love to have created Uber. Well, why? Because of who you are, because you want to be recognized as the person who created Uber, or because of what it returns to you, the value, the money, the fame, whatever it is. You don't have to go big. You just have to do something that you want to do. And I would argue that this is the fact, even if you're in a job, like I was just saying, if you don't like your job, find something else to do with it, counterbalance it. A great example of this is write a book. It costs you nothing to write a book today. So maybe you don't want to write a book, and that's fine. But as an example, if you're working full time and you're bringing in money and you're doing things and your passion is writing, go write a book, go do something else. Have this kind of side project. How about, beyond just a hobby, have something else that you are doing that leads you down the path of whatever your dreams and aspirations are. And so there's plenty of stuff that you can do for free that require little to no effort, that just allows you to wake up and have this something else to do. And it also provides you something to fall back on. So if you then do lose your job, or if you do quit your job, and now your identity is no longer, oh, you're the person who invented Uber, or you're the person who works for Google, or you're the, aren't you that manager of whatever?
Yeah, that
Well, now
makes
you can be something else. You can be an author. You can be a podcaster. Go create a podcast and do it. You can do it for free.
that's also the power of leveraging your brand, I guess, or becoming something before you rely on somebody else or another brand to make your image, I guess you could say. But
Absolutely.
would
Yeah.
you agree that you're an introvert?
Me, an introvert?
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
The reason I
It might not
ask,
seem like it. It definitely doesn't seem like it right now, I'm sure, but 100% introvert.
so I am too, but the reason I'm asking is because we talked about like leveraging maybe like relationships, personal relationships, or even just networking from where you worked at, right? How hard is it, and does that actually really come into play? Because I mean, we talk about like work culture at Google, for example. Are you really communicating with a bunch of people every day? Do you consider them your friends beyond work? Because it's a giant, massive corporation. So I'm just trying to understand, like, at you as an introvert, do you really see yourself leveraging your connections like constantly, your network constantly, and how important is that?
Yeah, I definitely think that you should be continuously leveraging your network and expanding who is in your circle, and doing your best to meet people and exploring opportunities. Somewhere in the middle of last year, I made it a point that if somebody reached out to me and said, "Hey, let's have a meeting and get to know each other," even if it's something that I don't necessarily think would be a good fit for me personally, I still go through and have the conversation, because I do think that meeting people and networking and exploring opportunities is valid for anyone, right? I'll give you an example. I had a podcast. I was a guest on a podcast, met somebody, then I had somebody else who was a guest on my podcast, and I said, "Oh, you know what? These two people should meet. Like, there's a good synergy here. I know both of them. They don't know each other." So I made the introduction, and the two of them went off and wrote a book together. So it's like sometimes you don't know what will happen through those networks. So definitely explore it and figure out if it's a good fit or if it's not a good fit.
Well, I think
But
also
don't.
you kind of just touched on intuition right there. So, can you want to go into that a little bit in terms of like how you know when to trust your gut or if it's just an idea? Like, is it really something telling you you should act on it?
Most of the time, it's instinct that's fueled by data.
Wow.
So that's the challenge. I think a lot of people say, "Well, it's my gut." Well, your gut is probably wrong if you don't have anything to back it up, right? Uh, and what backs it up? Experience, knowledge, you know, data. So if I just read an article that says, whatever, 90% of the people in the world like to eat out. I don't know. So that if somebody says, "Hey, let's get together," I would say, "Hey, do you want to eat out?" Odds are they're going to say yes, because I know 90% of the people eat out because I've read it, right? You've got to be able to go through that justification in your head. So, did I know that these two people would hit it off and write a book? No. But I knew that they had shared experiences. I knew that there was, shared interest, that they had something in common. And I know, again, from the past experiences, that the last time I made a connection with two people, that it was genuinely profitable for both. So you go through that process, you know what you make the instinctual, decision to network. But again, you've got to be able to back that up. You've got to have some sort of knowledge and data behind the scenes to justify whatever your gut reaction is.
Kind of made our brains sound basically like a computer
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
because we're
absolutely.
processing, making sometimes we don't make good decisions. The data's wrong, or maybe you calculated the data wrong. Or
Well, it goes, here's an example of that. And it goes back to building businesses and products. Like, I might have an idea, you might have an idea, and you say, "I've got a fabulous idea." Well, is it fabulous to you? Well, of course it's fabulous to you. It's your idea. Now, how are we going to validate this idea? You could say, "Well, I know because I've done my own research." Well, again, you've done your own research within the context of what you believe already is a great idea. So then you start to explore and you start to ask other people. I use this example all the time. I go to my mom and I say, "Hey, mom, I've got a great idea." And my mom comes back and says, "Yeah, I agree. It's a great idea." Do I still have a great idea? No. I've got somebody who loves me agreeing with me.
yeah,
She has no idea what the idea is. She's just saying, "Oh, another one of your ideas. I'm sure it's great. Yeah, it sounds great." So if you're getting validation from your family or close friends, that's not the right validation. It might be enough, but you still need those other people that are beyond your network, that are going to help you give legitimate, honest feedback. And that's how you validate.
which is
You've
interesting
got to
though.
go beyond just your own gut opinion.
But that's interesting because most people are doing it for the validation of the people around them. And then those people are the ones that don't even have, well, we don't want to say your best interest, but they might not be the most educated on whatever you're doing. So it's not even their fault.
No, they're just They're just supporting you.
That's
Yeah, I
crazy.
support you. No, whatever you want to do, that's fine. I support it. Yeah, it's a great idea.
That's interesting. It just goes to show, like, we all end up coming to the same conclusions later, like now or later, success or not. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Given like transition from entertainment to digital strategy, do you anticipate like a convergence of entertainment and technology evolving in the next decade?
Yeah, the form of which we engage with entertainment is, it's going to change. Obviously, like again, we talked about virtual reality, but even if we think about our phones, the evolution of a mobile phone has been significant in the last 30 years. And how we can connect the amount of data that is stored on our phones, the power, the speed of which we can connect online.
That's a big one.
We the 3G, the 4G, the 5G, whatever, 6G, 7G, 8G, all of that is going to rapidly change the amount of data and the amount of access and the capabilities to do things on our personal devices. Will our personal devices change? Probably also, whether or not it's something we wear. I had a conversation with somebody the other day. When I can get virtual reality like the metaverse and my phone in my contact lenses,
Yeah.
so that again, it's accessible to the average person.
Yeah.
Now we're really, getting to that next level
or a Star Wars hologram
entertainment
on your watch, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you could look at sci-fi, like Star Trek is a great example. Star Trek has the holodeck. You walk into a room and the room completely transforms as if you're there. Can we get to that point? I think, in another 50, 60, 70 years, probably definitely we would get to a point where we have real life holodeck types of experiences. It changes the need for going to a movie theater for sure, right? I definitely think that the three-dimensional aspect of going and watching a movie on a flat screen, that will change too. So as technology evolves, the way that we use that technology and the entertainment value we get out of that and that technology is going to also change.
Interesting. This one's going to get kind of into a strange question. So one of the research things that I've been working on recently, and I acknowledge that I'm not an expert in this area, but I'm using AI, right, to basically research how to use AI into time travel. And it sounds absurd until you realize all of these sci-fi topics are realistic when you're using AI. It's telling you how to do it, how it can become possible, what to watch out for, how you can use AI to make it real. So one of those things, it's where I'm like, does it seem crazy to you? Because to me, I'm like, I'm acknowledging I'm not an expert in this, while I'm also showing experts and they're validating, like, whoa, what is this? It's this weird wall that I've been up against, right? Because in my at the college I'm at right now, one of the things I deal with is I'll bring conclusions, and then weeks or months later, we'll end up going with that conclusion that everyone wasn't sure if it was the best. And that's a common thing that I think we're going to continue to run into, where, hey, here's what we should do. But companies are like, well, we got to, go through the books and the bureaucracy, and there's a policy we got to follow before we make these decisions, even if we know that that's the best solution from the beginning a long time ago. So at some point, it seems like, yeah, the purpose of this technology was to speed up these decisions being made, and everyone is still skeptical. So we're back at square one. Curious your perspective on that, from my research to the adoption of it being accepted. And then maybe if you have any like doomsday scenarios, any warnings that you fear.
So what you're touching on can be explored in a couple of different ways. So first off, if we think about AI and just its format, again, what's accessible? If I was to really just simplify this, and some people might disagree with me, but ChatGPT is nothing different than Google search. It's really not. So I ask it a question, it provides me an answer. I go to Google search, I ask Google search a question, provides me an answer.
Convenience.
The answer is in the form of a bunch of different websites. And then I have to go through those websites and click on each one, read them, consume the information, and do my research. And what ChatGPT has done is it's basically summarized those search results into a bunch of data that you can think about. Now, it's going to provide some additional levels of thought and query and insights, and it's going to be able to theoretically answer questions that you might have and come up with some solutions that will accelerate the process. Again, Google search, I get 10 websites. I got to go click on 10. I got to read each one. I've got to write them down, right? And all of this is doing is just accelerating that process. But when we get into advanced problem solving, and when I mean advanced problem solving, I'm talking about how about the cure for cancer?
Yeah.
Right? ChatGPT doesn't have the cure for cancer, and ChatGPT probably will never be able to provide you with the cure for cancer. It can provide you insights and information and research on the progress of the cure for cancer. It can provide you theoretical ideas around how we may solve and cure cancer. But ChatGPT is not going to be able to do it. It's not going to one day wake up and create the formula that cures cancer. It's just impossible. It can't do that because all it's doing is it's just trying to answer a question like a search result. But what we see AI accomplishing, there are actual AI models out there that are focused on curing cancer. And it's analyzing all different kinds of strains and solutions and options. Now, those AI models that are specifically being developed to target cancer and try to solve and cure cancer, those might have the chance to do that because that's what they've been built to do. And it's processing vast amounts of data in real time. All of the cancer cases around the world being funneled into a system to analyze and understand what works and what doesn't. It understands all of the chemistries and biologies and physics, even potentially of solving cancer. And it's analyzing it at a rapid pace faster than we could possibly ever do as humans. And so if you can think of it in that context where you have AI designed to solve problems versus what we have access today, ChatGPT, there is a substantial difference between them. And if you can think about it in that context, then to your point, yeah, we potentially can solve a lot of the world's problems with AI in the right way and accelerate decision making to get past bureaucracy because we know that what the output is a more legitimate output than what we're getting through, again, ChatGPT.
And just to confirm, do you agree that there is a dramatic difference between 3.5 and 4? Because I can't even get 3.5 to do what I want or know what I want it to do, but 4 is just like, do your thing. It's like a dog off a leash. You trust it.
Yeah, it's because it's an earlier model with less data and it's faster. It's designed to just try to simplify answers as, it would be if I was to say Google, again, going back to Google search, there's only one Google search. But if I said you've got rapid Google search and then we've got a premium Google search, and on the premium Google search, I'm going to find the websites that you're looking for faster and more accurately. It's a little bit slower. Like that would be the comparison. But in this case, there's no difference in Google search. But yeah, that's all it's done is it's just said, let's overly simplify it, further summarize it, less data inside of say 3.5. So the natural upgrade to 4 is definitely, stronger. 4.5 or 5, depending upon which way they go, which supposedly is already available, but not publicly released. That's going to be yet an additional step in maturity and response in the type of data that it can output.
What's interesting is I just want it to be able to accept more information at once. Like it doesn't even seem like a big request. It seems very basic, but like staying on this kind of a theoretical time travel scenario, if we assumed that AI has been around as long as we have said, do you have any like suspicions maybe that it has existed, maybe under covert programs, and even more so, where do you see like maybe GPT-7 in the future? Because you're saying there is no immediate answer, but can you imagine the answer to cancer being in one sentence prompt by the time that that's available? I'm just thinking, in the future.
Yeah, look, as a huge fan of Back to the Future, I would love for time travel to be a reality. Again, there's theoretical thoughts around time travel that have some of the earliest movies deal with time travel. Actually, there's a movie from 1905, I think, that
Wow.
was about time travel, right? So the concepts of time travel has also been sustained throughout time. So these types of problems, whether it's physical problems, whether it's space travel, whether it's warp drive, whether it's the holodeck, whether it's a cure for cancer, these are all questions and ideas and stories that the human, kind that we are always interested in, fascinated by, and explore. We go back. AI is there as a means by which we can ask it questions and get responses. If there was a solution, then yeah, in theory, you could query it what the solution is, and it would provide you. But because we don't have the answers, because currently, as of today, time travel isn't possible. And currently, we don't know if there's actually aliens. And currently, we don't know what the cure for cancer is. All of it is hypothetical. All of it is exploratory. All of it is made up based on science fiction and ideas that people have talked about. But until there is the actual answer, then we won't have it. Just like I can ask it what's 2 + 2, and it's going to provide me with 4 because we know what that answer is. But what's interesting about ChatGPT, if you really want to explore the difference between reality and hypothetical, is you could ask it a math question like what's 2 + 2, and it's going to provide you 4. But if you get into complex numbers, like if I say, can you put together what 1,365,342 times 633 plus an additional 655,125? It will probably give you the wrong answer.
Wow.
And the reason is because it's only trying to predict what it thinks the answer is. It's not designed to solve problems. And so something like math, it can give you the equations as to how you might solve it, but it won't actually give you the valid answer to that because, again, it's just trying to be predictive, and it's going to give you a range of what that math solution really is.
How far away are we from Minority Report?
Oh, same thing. That we're dealing with sci-fi, right? We're dealing with predictions. Now, Minority
Because
Report
AI is predictions,
interesting,
right?
Yeah, Minority Report is all about predicting the future. Now, there's some mysticism in
For
that
sure.
movie.
Yeah.
But even if we say, look, I've got enough data about individuals, about all the individuals in the country, and I can start to predict based on what they do. I think that this person might, execute a crime in the next 5 days. Like, theoretically, that's what prediction is, right? Theoretically, that's what AI is doing. It's predicting what the outcome might be based on various, scenarios and facts. Another show to watch is A Person of Interest. If you've ever seen that show with Jim Caviezel, and it's about an AI called the Machine that actually outputs social security numbers as a prediction of that this person is either going to be involved in a crime or implement or execute a crime. And so it's all about stopping the crime before it happens. And it's usually within a 24-hour basis, but that's it. It's scanning everything in the entire country to analyze and then predict who might actually be a part of a crime. So again, shows and TV, sci-fi have explored these ideas for ages.
So your work at Sensible AI, is that how you say it? Sensible? Where does that like fall in line with your view on like ethics for AI and stuff? Because we're talking about mysticism as well. So I'm kind of curious how you see that converging with AI in the future. Like, can that open doors for people spiritually?
Yeah, well, look, there used to be a time where you would call 1-800, talk to a psychic, and you could call up, one of those numbers and pay 9.99,
Wow,
per minute
I
almost,
love it.
and listen to a psychic and ask a question and say, will I get married in the future? And they would tell you an answer, right? So, uh, on some levels, you could actually look at AI as being fairly mystical. It's very, intuitive. So you could ask AI, like, what is my future? I've never asked ChatGPT, what is my future
So
going
glad
to
you're
be?
asking
Or,
this. No,
yeah.
because I've been
Um,
using it for the I Ching. Do you know the Chinese divination?
yeah.
And I was even asking AI, like, is this the same thing as flipping coins? Like, really? Like, and it basically said yes, that you can simulate flipping coins with AI, and it's all up to interpretation. And the more I use it, the more I'm like, wow, this kind of creepy how accurate this is. Like, truthfully, like, if you want to treat it like a rolled an 8 ball, magic 8 ball, you can. So I'm really glad you touched on
Yeah, I just asked AI, tell me about my future, and it says your future seems bright and full of potential
that.
with a strong focus on innovation. Now,
Freakishly
again, what
accurate.
this is doing, it's provided me a bunch of interesting insights, but what it's doing is it's just pulling information it already knows about
Yeah.
me, right? And formulating it into a positive response so that I can read it and say, oh, yeah, this looks great. I'm excited about my future. But again, it's not really predicting the future. All it's doing is giving you the words that you would like to hear, motivational, right? And so, um, I think though, again, if we think about that, like kind of personal AI, if I have an AI that is attached to me that I can communicate with on a regular basis, and I'm feeling down, and it's connected to me like my watch, and it says, hey Chris, I sense that your stress levels are high. How about if we just take a moment, and relax, and I will give you a meditation right now, and just follow after me. Breathe in, breathe out. And how do you feel now? And I say, I'm feeling better. Like those types of things. Yeah, I'm sure that they could be great prompts to help us be more motivated and successful.
Man, at that point, the AI will probably be telling you, don't you feel better? Like, it'll
Yeah,
ask you.
yeah, yeah. Don't you feel better after that?
Yeah,
Yeah, I do.
because it's
Thanks.
measuring everything in your body at that point. But
Yep.
one of the questions, kind of full circle, you started with music. How do you anticipate the entertainment industry having to pivot with, you've seen Universal pulling out of TikTok. That's just one thing. As on top of artists, just nobody charting, nobody selling actual albums, just problem after problem. And seems like a dinosaur industry that doesn't want to really evolve, or maybe it just wants to maintain its power. So just how you perceive this, and what do you think they're going to do? How will that shift come?
Well, I think more, it's just like everything else. The more that I can do it on my own, then the more I don't need record labels, right? So, really, what we're talking about is the problem is with the record labels, not necessarily with the music industry per se. Music will continue to be around. Music has been around since the dawn of man, and music will continue to be around because it's a way that we explore and express ourselves. So, if music is always going to be around, then the question is how do I produce music and share it with other people? And I don't necessarily need to go and get a manager and a record label. It's like self publishing for books. You could go write a book and publish it yourself and get it on Amazon right now. Same thing with a podcast. It used to be that podcasts were expensive and it was very challenging, and you had to go through a lot of things to get it set up. Now, pretty much everybody and anybody can create a podcast, and you can do it again for cheap or free. I think music is going to be the same way. Artists are going to be able to create music, and they're going to have platforms by which they can share and sell music without going through all of the legal and business practices that are in place.
So is art undervalued in your opinion? And we were talking about how, things are like blockchain going to be more valuable in the future. So it seems like NFTs maybe died out, perhaps.
I don't know about NFTs. Again, you've got to wrap your head around is there value in what people want. Now, we all have our individual desires and values. And so I might see, again, an NFT and say, oh my gosh, I love that. I'm
Hmm.
going to keep it. But then it's for me. And do you ever see a resale value on that? No, I don't. I just don't see it. Again, NFTs have been around for a long time. NFTs actually started in video games. The whole concept of NFTs are video and digital assets. And what happened was in video games, we would create things and then we would want real world values for them.
Hmm.
This is where the interchange between cryptocurrencies and NFTs started, was in video games. And I would say have some sort of asset. Well, the value for that was that that asset was shareable inside of the game. So somebody else who was playing the game, and let's say it was a sword, the sword of all powerful might, whatever, and I have it. Well, that's a digital asset. It's an NFT, really. And somebody else in the game wants it and they're willing to give me money for it. Who am I? I'll sell it to you because there's an exchange value there. And so that started to happen. But the value was, present and available within the game environment. Once you get outside of it, if you have an NFT, again, ask your question. The average person, what are they going to do with it? If we look at physical things like paintings, if I have a Van Gogh, other people want it, there's value, there's an exchange opportunity. There's a physical thing that people are going to be able to exchange and get from it. It's just not going to happen from an NFT perspective until there's some sort of exchange value for the average person.
You did just kind of make me daydream that like a crazy scenario would be like an MMO such as RuneScape becoming the metaverse, and then those digital assets being worth something. That seems kind of realistic in my opinion. Like if we can actually immerse ourselves in it, it might be more tangible to sell it in real life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I had explored previously would be, you mentioned MMOs, RuneScape, great, but like the one of the top MMOs out there is World of
Oh
Warcraft.
yeah.
And so I'm playing World of Warcraft, and inside of World of Warcraft there are bars, or taverns, we'll call them, whatever. And I walk in and I can buy some ale, and it's all virtual. It's virtual ale using virtual currency. But imagine if I could walk into a Domino's inside of World of Warcraft. Now I'm obviously separating the world, but imagine that I could walk into a Domino's pizza, inside of World of Warcraft. I could order my pizza. I could pay for it through virtual currency. And then in a half an hour, somebody knocks on my door and delivers the pizza that I've actually ordered.
Yeah.
Right? So the interface is the actual game and inside of the game. And the real transaction is I'm getting a real pizza that I want to eat and enjoy, but it's being exchanged for virtual currencies inside of a game world. Like that type of next level engagement where there is a transaction between virtual and real world value. That's, I think, the next step.
That is a super insightful note to honestly end this on, because I got like a really good feeling out of that one. Like I really think you're predicting something there. Is there anything you want to leave out on like maybe warnings for humanity, something ominous or crazy, some kind of predictions?
No, I don't think there's any ominous, but what I would say is that if you're looking at business, you're trying to get into business, start a business, anything like that, you've got to just stay in touch with your customer base, stay in touch with what they want, stay in touch with what they're asking for, listen to them. And all of these ideas we've explored is because, again, at the end of the day, somebody has thought about them and they've listened to their consumers and they've started to predict what that possibility might be. So always start with your customers, always start listening to them and hearing what they want to have.
What are you most excited about? Like for what you're currently working on, like what you wake up excited for, both those.
Well, right now I am deep into the gaming space. I'm actively participating in a lot of gaming ventures because I think video games is the root for a lot of things in the future. Really, as I mentioned it, uh, blockchain came from video games. NFTs came from video games. Cryptos, again, came from video games. I think virtual reality, theoretically didn't come from video games, but it's what's fueling video games in the metaverse and future of business, right? So you've got to really think about those industries that are having impact on what we do on a regular basis. Video games is where it's at right now.
You left out music, and that was a big one in the 90s. They predicted it.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, look at the music inside of video
Mm-hmm.
games is definitely evolving. Virtual environments for concerts, so that you feel like you're there and listening to a concert, even if you're in the comfort of your home. Like, yeah, all of that stuff is going to happen with inside of a gaming type of context.
Awesome. Definitely appreciate your time today, Chris. Any last words? How do they find you, look you up?
Yeah, you can reach out to me on my website, chrishood.com, CHRISHOOD.com.
Awesome. Appreciate your time today. It's been super insightful. Learned a lot.
Absolutely.
Be in touch. Thanks.